Hi, I'm Lex from SmartyClothes.com, and today I'm going to show you how to put a fabric neckline on a t-shirt like this for WhatTheCraft.com.
Now there's no measuring in this tutorial, so some might consider that cheating, but that's just how I roll. So I've got my neckline cut out and my shoulder seams sewn up and about a 3-inch wide strip of my collar fabric. To make sure my collar piece is long enough, I'm just going to fold my neckline in half at the center front and set her back and lay it out. Just eyeball it. Remember, no measuring. So our next step is going to be to mark the back center of our neckline. So I'm going to line up the shoulder seams, fold in half, and then mark the center. I said mark the center, damn it. And there we go. Alright. So the center back is where we're going to want the seam of our collar fabric. So grab that collar fabric, get one end of it, and start folding it in half. And line it up with the pin, giving it about a 1/4 inch seam allowance if you're using a serger, maybe a little more if you're using a regular sewing machine. And just start pinning it around the neckline. Now you're going to want to stretch the collar fabric a little bit in between each pin. This is the part of necklines on t-shirts that takes a little bit of practice because depending on your collar fabric, you'll want to stretch a little more or a little less to get it to lay flat when you're done. A general rule of thumb is to stretch less on straight parts of a curved neckline, say from the shoulder seams to the bust line, and then around the curve of the bust and the curve of the back of a shirt, stretch more. So once you get it all pinned around and we're back where we started, you'll have a little extra tail of fabric. That's fine. Now we're going to start sewing. So you want to start sewing about 3 to 4 inches where we first started pinning. So that means our first 3 to 4 inches of the collar right now is not being sewn to the neckline. So remember, you're going to want to stretch the collar fabric a little bit as you sew. And when you get to those curved areas of the neckline where you're stretching the collar fabric a little bit more, you'll notice that as you stretch it, it kind of helps the collar fabric conform to the curves of the neckline. And that's how you're going to know you're stretching the fabric the right amount. Okay, we're coming up upon the end here. So the same way we didn't sew the first 3 to 4 inches of our collar to the neckline, we're not going to sew the last 3 to 4 inches of the collar to the neckline. So here we have it all laid out. As you can see, we have about a 6-inch gap in the back where the collar is not sewn to the neckline. And there's where we have it stitched. And we've got our little tail of collar fabric. So we'll take that one end, make sure it lines up with the pin, which is marking our center back still. Then we're going to take the other end, making sure it's folded in half nicely. And we're going to lay it out. And you're going to want, again, about a 1/4 inch overlap from where the pin mark is for our seam allowance. And just give it a cut. And that is where our collar seam will be. So now you want to put those together, right sides together. Make sure there's nothing twisted funny. Line up the edges and then pin it together in slow motion. And once we get that pinned, it's time to sew it together. So it's back to the serger. I'm going to take the pins out because I live dangerously. And I'm going to sew that baby up. Booyah. Okay, now we've got our collar all sewn together, as you can see. If you give it a little tug, it'll probably just fold up on itself, but if not, match up those collar raw edges, snip off those extra thread tails, and then you want to line up that seam with the pin at the center back of the neckline, which it should just match perfectly because we're so awesome. Like so. And now it's time to finish this baby off. So go back to where we ended the stitching. I'm just going to overlap right over that. Sew around that collar and neckline. There's our center back seam. And then you want to overlap over where we started our stitching. So it's going to look like one continuous stitch all the way around the neckline. And no one will ever know that we totally cheated. I won't tell anybody if you won't. Now we can admire our handiwork. There we go. because we finished off that stitching. It all meets up really nicely, like so. Clip those thread tails, fold that baby up, and you've got a brand spanking new collar on your awesome t-shirt. If you want to go back and top stitch around that, you go right ahead. I'm going to just move this shirt around the table a little bit, pick at it, futz with it, and I'm done.
Well, that's it for this tutorial on how to finish the neckline of a t-shirt. For more tutorials, visit whatthecraft.com, and for more of my creations, visit smarmyclothes.com. Thanks for watching.